And we're live. Hey, smokers, Kara here. I gotta give a. Oh, that's going a bit loud, isn't it? Ooh, it's going in the bloody red zone. Is it picking up the right mic? Yeah. Okay. Technical difficulties. I'm gonna have to give a content warning. We're gonna be getting into transphobia. Obviously, it's still going in the red. Oh, this fucking microphone shit. Transphobia, misogyny, um, violence in both the sex industry as well as street violence directed at trans people. This whole video, if like anything along those lines is gonna cause you any sense of stress, like in the sense of the terror it can cause for trans sisters, MBs, and brothers. I get that, and also especially those whom have been victims of this violence before. If this video is not for you, don't stress it. Like, skip this one out. But for those who want to listen to this incredible article, stay tuned because it is absolutely amazing for talking about the absolute nasty struggle that we face as trans women and how that affects the trans community. Because misogyny is the same way that trans men are also attacked. This article's amazing. I'm underselling it. But let's get into reading it because the article speaks for itself. It's fucking amazing. Alright then, so girls you can hate. Wait, I need to click off that because it's making the thing go weird. Why do fascists want... Why is it still going in the red? What the fuck is with this mic sensitivity? Holy shit. Fucking... Why do fascists want to kill trans women? In a 9-day period between June 25th and July the 3rd, 6 black trans women, Brayla Stone, Mercy Mack, Shaki Peters, Drea McCarthy, and Tatiana Hall were all found murdered. The news barely made a ripple. Black trans women and trans women of color are murdered regularly, and no one is shocked because the gender class structure is operating as usual. Liberal individualist analysis claims that this is simply a result of amorphous personal prejudices, in quotation marks, that individual men fear of the unknown or afraid of change attack trans women for personal reasons. There we go. Sorry. This is both idealist and ahistorical, a comforting fantasy that naturalizes and atomizes the oppression of trans women as a class and protects the underlying gender class structure of the empire. In fact, reactionaries make trans women a primary target. ICE imprisons trans women in special separate concentration camps under even worse conditions than cisgender men and women. And during protests, police subject captured trans women for especially brutal treatment. On July 25th, a group of pro-police protesters outside Pittsburgh, that's a weird way of spelling the word borough, or is that meant to be Berg, and I'm just pronouncing it like a moron? I think I'm having a moment. Pittsburgh or Pittsburgh, I don't know, they've used the GH, it's confusing the living shit out of me. I think this is some German tomfoolery. Switched their chant from quote-unquote all lives matter to quote-unquote kill transgenders and quote-unquote kill faggots. state power and reactionary elements target trans women specifically, but why? Because the oppression of trans women as a class is critical to the gender class structure of the empire, and by centering the oppression of trans women in our material feminist analysis, we can understand that class structure much more clearly. What is the gender class structure of empire? Fundamentally, the gender class structure is built on the domination of white men over women. White women constitute a subordinated but privileged class under the control, quote-unquote, protection of white men, and reactionary white manhood is ultimately defined in terms of control of women. What is the role of trans women and non-binary trans feminine people whom are treated like trans women in this gender class structure? Trans women, non-binary, trans feminine people, and feminine gay cisgender men are treated as a gender underclass. Structurally, they are, quote, girls you can hit, end quote. They are also subject to substantial sexual violence in the form of sexual assault and rape. Cisgender women from oppressed and colonized nations are treated more like, quote, girls you can hit, end quote, if they are less acceptable as potential members of the, quote unquote, protected class of potential wives and mothers. Thus, black and indigenous women are treated disposably as, quote, girls you can hit, end quote. Likewise, sex workers who are seen as disqualified from the protected class, end quote, in quotations, class of women, are, quote, girls you can hit, end quote. The further they are from the quote unquote protected class of women, the more disposable they are, and they are treated more and more like trans women. This develops intersectionally as well. Black trans women are often accused of sex works to justify violent treatment, and black trans women sex workers are murdered casually. Why do cisgender men oppress trans women? In other words, how do cisgender men benefit materially from oppressing trans women? This dynamic arises in childhood, where they are an acceptable target for violence and covert sex, quote-unquote, practice girls, by boys trying to enact their manhood. Men can gain status and an identity as controllers of women by hurting, quote, girls you can hit, end quote. They quote-unquote protect white cis women in the same way that the police quote-unquote protect white communities by enacting violence on the underclass. They gain control over the quote-unquote respectable class of women. The threat to the women they control is supposed to be implicit, not enacted. Quote, serve me faithfully and you will never be hurt the way I hurt those sissies in middle school, end quote. But the opposite side of the coin is that any, quote, protected, end quote, woman whom refuses to comply in a serious and sustained way can be threatened with degradation to the underclass. Why do cisgender women oppress trans women? In other words, how do cisgender women benefit materially from oppressing trans women? They get to not be treated like trans women. Sex workers and other girls you can hit in quotation marks, their respectable status is contingent on having an underclass they are not proud of. How does the oppression of trans men and non-binary trans masculine people who are treated like trans men fit into the gender class structure? The greatest threat to a trans woman's life is being treated like a trans woman. For trans men and non-binary trans masculine people, the greatest threat to their lives is being treated like a cis woman. We can see this play out in our fascist fantasies of quote-unquote correcting trans men to become we can see this play out in fascist fantasies of quote-unquote correcting trans men to become cis women, and in the way that trans misogynists like J.K. Rowling claim that, quote, trans activists, code for trans women, are seducing your daughters into mutilating their healthy, fertile female bodies in an impossible attempt to become men, end quote. I gotta pause it there a moment. So, a very key factor about that kind of statement, there is a very fascinating thing with an intersection between transphobes and weird, creepy Christian pedophiles that fantasize over little girls and their virginity and their fertility. That's what J.K. Rowling's doing there. Anyone that goes, well, J.K. Rowling's had some liberal or some good stances. No, 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 no. Being friends with Tony Blair doesn't make you a liberal. He's a very confused character. Secondly speaking, doing charity doesn't also make you outright a liberal. She works with fascist organizations. She's got good friends that are fascists. And the TERF fascist pipeline is just a different discussion that we could go into for ages. But to really point out a thing here, she is speaking exactly like Matt Walsh would. She is fetishizing the fertility of young girls. That is fucking creepy. Nothing about it. That is creepy. I know I would feel extremely fucking uncomfortable if I was growing up and was having my fertility fetishized in that kind of way. Well, apparently I'm the one trying to threaten their fucking fertility. What did we do? In fascist and reactionary rhetoric, trans men are framed as deluded, innocent cis women. That's a preach to hysteria, a common way that women are always attacked. Trans or cis, hysteria is always the way that they'll try and belittle what we have to say. Um, J.K. Rowling is modern day Judge Orwell. That's the new name for him, Judge Orwell. Joj, and then just Well. Judge Orwell. Liberal liberal hero who's really just a creep and a weasel. I mean, they seem like a liberal hero, but they're J.K. Rowling gives me the bloody third positionist vibes. Like she's a fucking right fucking scary bitch in her own way. Because she knows how to keep good public image while literally saying shit that puts the eradication of trans people on the table, working specifically with groups whom explicitly want the eradication of trans people in the UK. They've already made it incredibly fucking like they pushed. I swear they pushed for a bill that fucking took away trans affirming care for youths in the UK. I can't remember. I might be getting that wrong, but I remember someone mentioning that it happened here and then the US started doing it. Which I mean, not. I mean, we normally say here that you guys are normally 5 years ahead and we're catching up to you, but it probably does make a little more sense that us as the already crumbled empire, you guys are coming in our direction. Oh, good luck with that one. I hope you're looking forward to becoming even more of a doomer country than you already are. And your crash is going to be more violent than ours because, quantitative developments of capitalist contradictions lead to more explosive crashes. The British Empire's crash in 1927 was pretty fucking violent. I'm pretty sure we can all agree with that one, with World War II happening. World War III is going to be another bitch in and of itself. Back to the article, though. Innocent cis women whom have to be saved from the horrible terror. A horrible error. I'm so used to them making us sound like we're some great Jewish conspiracy to transition your children and cause. What else is it that they normally say? Isn't it race mixing or some shit like that? I don't know. Like they think that white people shit. Like just put that in like quotation marks or something. You save yourself having to come up with the examples. Then everyone kind of knows where it's going from there. um, in the material world, this agenda often plays out in the form of corrective rape and other atrocities. Trans men from colonized communities are treated much more violently, as in the case of the murdered Tony McDade. There is no prospect of forcing them to be quote unquote protected women. So they are treated disposably like trans women. How does Empire. Sorry, fucking read the line below it like it's. Like I'm playing fucking Snakes and Ladders. Fucking. Uh, how does I want to do it again? How does trans women's liberation threaten the foundations of the empire? In other words, why do reactionaries want to wipe out trans women? God, my throat is fucked. The reactionaries are not mistaken to see the liberation of trans women and sex workers as linked to the liberation of cis women from colonized communities, nor is their targeting of trans women a mistake. The liberation of trans women and quote girls you can hit end quote in general would invert the gendered class structure of the empire and strike a critical blow to the control of quote protected end quote women that reactionary men depend on for both social reproduction, personal exercise of power and identity form fucking hell formation. What are the implications for us? We must center the liberation of trans women, sex workers, and other quote girls you can hit end quote. This will immediately help to liberate cis women from colonized nations, remove the hierarchical power of quote protected end quote white cis uh, oh wait, there we go, women. At a moment there I was like, wait, where the fuck is the rest of the sentence? Women over other women, degrade the power of white cisgender men over oppressed genders, and remove the basis for treating trans men and trans masculine people as deluded cis women. It's the end of the bloody article. Absolutely beautifully stated. One interesting thing I heard once from a reactionary as well, I have not substantiated this, but given a lot of connotations with Roman history and the way that the way their homophobia worked, it wouldn't surprise me if this happened to some degree. Not the actual full extent of its conclusion, but the actual way the women's movement formed. So basically, there was a women's movement in the collapsing era of Rome, where splitting off and the Western Empire was collapsing in Rome. And I heard from a reactionary that there were like trans women involved in that movement, which that is not impossible because you became. I know Rome had some weird like one gender idea. I'm pretty sure that was that was something they believed in as well, where it was like women were just like lesser men. And basically, like, if you were the bottom in a relationship between two men, you become a de facto woman. I remember hearing that about Roman culture. Some fucking anthropologist is gonna fucking lose their shit. I'm gonna find out I'm very wrong, but I'm up for being proven wrong. But this is stuff that I fucking this is just funny stuff about it. So basically, they get edgy because like they think that like they seem to ignore the whole like barbarians against the Romans because they fantasize over the Scandinavians and the Germans all the time. Modern fascists, they're in conflict with themselves. And so they seem to have centered like the collapse of the Roman Empire on what happened inside of Rome, um, weakening Rome's ability to exert its strength. I call it an imperialist cope, and in that imperialist cope, they're basically like they this reactionary had suggested to me that like that one of the main hatred of trans women is that we had caused the end of the Roman Empire and now we're gonna end like the other empires. We're gonna destroy the Western power basis of as we always have. Um, I don't know. Like it was kooky because normally reactionaries try and deny our existence until like the early 2000s, even though we have like long existed. Other than Nazis, whom well, they burnt our shit in 1932. They're very well aware that we exist. I mean, most common videos you see of book burnings in Nazi Germany, when you've been shown them in like movies and stuff from actual footage from the Nazis, because they filmed a couple of these, you're seeing the book burning of trans and other LGBTQ affirmative care and medical studies being burned, literature in the fucking tons. Um, Imperial or metric, take your pick. Sorry, I had my chance to feel like I'm funny. But we gotta really understand that this is an interconnected issue in the struggle for proletarian liberation, the struggle against the oppressive structures of race, of gender, and how they operate is an intrinsic part of that struggle. You don't just go balls to the walls and ignore these issues on this like faint-hearted belief that if we just solve the class problems, these issues will wither away. No, they have to be intrinsically part of the struggle. Otherwise, you risk so many of us becoming massacred by fascists. We're a part of the proletariat. I'm sitting here, a lumpen proletarian trans woman. We are a part of the proletariat. Let's be fucking clear. And so, intrinsically, we are a part of this struggle. We are inseparable from this struggle. Class does be the denominator of all. It is the big fucking honcho when you're looking at the structures in society. But the stratification of class is an important factor, and these other social issues have caused that stratification. And if we're to ever unite in our struggle, we've got to understand what denotes those lines of stratification and how we can build the bridges across to organize on the basis of those stratification. Like, if you're in a country where there are, like, a colonized nation and a colonizer nation, like, you're not going to turn around and say that those colonized peoples are going to have to be in your colonizer nation party, for example, as a way of solving things. If there's going to be working together, such a situation would come from coalition, and that all really depends on what the colonized peoples want to do. Because if they fucking want you out, I mean, that's their game business. Obviously, certain situations are going to fucking differ and apply in different ways. A lot of people get scared when people say that, because I mean, most situations people don't want to boot everyone out, but people take things way too far when you make things stated at the extreme point in which they can go, because you've got to lay out such extremes. This is a situation of bourgeois settler colonialism and imperialism and what that brings to the table. Like, these things are all intrinsically inseparable from each other. They have a constant relationship. And so, in trying to deal with the class issue, the colonial issue has to be at the forefront of it, because the colonial issue is intrinsically tied to the class issue. As is the gender issue. when I see this statement and in real life and on the internet, it reminds me of this Whitey. No, it was the AI Joe Rogan show, and like Jordan Peterson is like getting bitchy about Christmas, and like AI Joe Rogan goes, "Why are you being such a sour person?" He goes, "Do you know why? I every year I am really good, both online and in real life." And no one ever buys me a present. If anyone would just buy me a present, it'd heal my cold, cruel heart. And then he does like a twist of the head, and he looks like he's fucking losing his shit. It's funny. Um, there's an Alex Jones scene from it that's amazing. Um, I have dreams, Joe. One moment, and you know what? 99% of them come true. One morning, I dreamed about cereal. Next thing you know, bowl of fucking Fruit Loops. I'm not fucking shitting you, Joe. I've got the documents right here to prove it. Holy shit! But this issue is getting intense. If I pull up an article a moment, one second. I gotta sort something out. Fucker. Oh shit. God, my fucking tits hurt. Forgetting something else. I'm having a moment. Ugh. Still lack any sense of professionalism. I have Duke Nukem stuck in my head like most of the time. Okay, so like the issue now is getting rather incredibly intense because as we speak, America just further and further is going down the rabbit hole that we've already been seeing the UK as well going down, where trans bills with the attempt to, as far as it conclusively goes, exterminate trans people by denying them the proper accessibility to our care and fucking putting us in a situation where we're being ousted, misgendered constantly, dead named. What's it? I should There's a discussion that needs to be had on like how what happens when trans people get arrested by the police. That I should do a whole video on as well, because if you ever get arrested by the police and you're trans, you are going to be dead named and misgendered and like forcibly argued on it to be seen that way, no matter how much you try and fight back on it. That's one of the ways they stick their boot on your head and they push you to a point where you are gonna, sorry for mentioning something involving suicidal ideation, but you're gonna want to kill yourself. No other words about it. I know all my trans sisters, enbies, and brothers watching already know it, but cis people need to just hear it as it is. That's how it goes. Dead naming makes you want to fucking die. Fucking tears you apart. It's like it's like being treated like you don't actually properly exist, but not in this sort of like blanked way where you're just being physically ignored. You're being brutally shown as if you don't truly exist properly to people. The framework and how in which they assess you, treat you, and deal with you is centered around this very abusive mannerism. it's it's not just drowning in the sense of how like just typically like the metaphorical way you would talk about it in depression. It's like taking that metaphor from depression but turning it into its worst state. It's like being waterboarded in regards to your identity. So what's it? I should probably get up this article from America. Video? No. Okay. I haven't managed to go through this yet, but it's scary enough as it fucking is. That we good to have a go through it, and then I can go through it again, or cut this out if it's a good enough segment and re-upload it so it's separate and blatant, but it's interconnected with everything that's going on right now and the rising violence. Because I mean, you have both. I mean, a lot of what I was getting into there was a lot more civil society and uh, the brutality of white supremacy and what's it, cisgender supremacy and the way in which these interactions go between trans women, people of color, and white women. What I'm going to be talking about right now is getting more into the legal framework of where capitalism is taking this issue and the dangerous ways they are going to fuck us into the dirt if we're not careful and we don't get a fucking if we don't get active struggle going on for trans rights. Like the priority for communist parties right now would be to be trying to organize struggles for trans rights and protections and not fucking around like same as any other org that's left wing, like really. But the Marxists and anarchists, the communists, they should be fucking leading this shit. Should be at the fucking forefront. Let me figure out how to do a window capture properly because I'm a fucking moron. There we go. No. Ah. There we go. Ah. Let's blow that up. Really fucking big. There we go. Okay. Um, I might just go like that because it makes it a bit bigger than actually. Okay, that works. I'm fucking the resolution to shit. It's gonna it's gonna reach a point where it gets incredibly blurry. Okay. The United States House of Representatives just passed the quote Parents' Bill of Rights end quote 213 to 208. It is the first national bill that targets transgender youth. It contains provisions that forcibly out them to their parents and forces teachers to misgender them. As the fucking dickheads in their little chamber. Here are the gender provisions of the bill. Oh shit. Um, I know how to use a mouse properly. Uh, it will go to the Dem-controlled Senate, where this wire has been a cunt. Oh, revelation, it will go to the Dem-controlled Senate, where there does not have much, where this does not have much support. Joe Biden has already expressed his own opposition to the bill, which it is unlikely to become law. While it is unlikely to become law, it is a significant moment in trans legislation. Title 4 Gender Markers, Pronouns and Preferred Names on School Forms. Sec 401 Requirement. Sector 401 Requirement related to gender markers, pronouns, and referred names on school forms. As a condition of receiving federal funds at any elementary school. As such, as such term is defined in section. I need to make this bigger. Okay, I'm trying to do the OBS thing while I'm on the other page. There we go. That's better. Um, as a condition of receiving federal funds, um, what is it not doing the show mouse stuff? Should be showing my mouse. It's supposed to be. There we go. Fucking hell. As such a term is defined in section 8101 of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965, 20 USC 7801, or school that consists of only middle grades as such is defined in such section that receives federal funds shall be required to obtain parental consent before changing a minor child's gender markers, pronouns, or preferred name on any school form, or two, allowing a child to change the child's sex based accommodations, including locker rooms or bathrooms. To those new to my feed, I am an independent journalist covering trans legislation and life. If you want to keep up to date with these bills, you can subscribe to support my work and get over 200 articles a year. I was at the end of it. I just read the advertisement. Um, uh, Teacher, I'm straight and cis. I will never dead name or misgender a student on purpose. They can fire me. Hella base. Fucking zoomed into shit. Um, yeah, no, what's it? I needed to read through that because I was only told about that like moments ago, and so I thought I'd take the time to read through it here because it is interconnected with what's going on with girls who can hurt. These things all affect relatively because as the legal situation gets worse and worse, the already worsened civil society situation is going to get worse and worse, and we have already seen nasty fucking attacks on trans women, especially trans women of color. Black trans women in both America and the UK. It wouldn't surprise me if it's also the same in Canada. Are the biggest targets of assault, like violence and what's it? That's it. Homicide's the term. I was having a moment then. Yeah. The biggest victims of homicide out of any group, black trans women. This violence is going to keep getting worse as these laws keep getting worse. These things feed into each other. And as things start to degrade, it just makes things more and more dangerous for people like me to even exist. No more than actually try and have a fucking life. There's a reason why a lot of fucking trans people just stay locked up all the time. Don't want to go outside. World's a violent and scary place. And if we don't organize, if we don't get our shit to fucking together very fucking soon, it's going to get so much worse, so much quicker than it has been. These things quantify. And as they quantify, the quality of the problem gets worse. It's not going to go on this nice smooth scale where you can predict so easily that, oh, we've got these many... No, we've got to treat it as this problem is a compounding effect. It's getting worse at a magnified rate because of this. You can't dawdle around with it thinking we have all this time. Like, we don't. Shit's getting really fucking bad. We can't dawdle about. We gotta get shit sorted. We'll die trying. And trust me, ask any of my closest trans sisters. I'm fucking terrified by this shit. Don't think I'm fucking coming in like I'm some fucking brave motherfucker about it. This shit terrifies the fuck out of me. I spent most of my life living under domestic violence from men. I'm pretty fucking terrified by them. I've had that instilled into me. But I understand that regardless of how terrified I am about the situation, we need to do something about it. Otherwise, it's death. Because they want to exterminate us. The joke I always make is TERFs. Not really feminists. So trans-exclusionary radical feminists don't really work. Trans-exterminatory racist fascists. That works. Or rapist fascists. Take your pick. They're either fucking one. But Wankstainosauruses, or whatever the fuck you want to call them. But TERFs, they're not feminists. They're not left. They're not in any way like, you can't be a left winger and be a TERF. You're a TERF, you have gone over to the right. It's fascistic shit. Trans exterminatory racist fascist. Fucking scumbags. It's do or die. That's kind of the situation we're stuck in. It's not that simple. There's so much more to it, but we need to be organizing because if we don't do anything, this shit is going to pave its way over. 2024 is the next election cycle, and the Republicans are going to probably at least get somewhere in regards to taking some power back. If not, actually get their guy in fucking office who can just do executive orders around these horrific fucking issues. The US president has the same power that a monarch has. They're just elected. That's the difference. There's a little more, but I imagine there's probably a little more restrictions. I don't know, because democracy and such. But let's be real. In the same way that if Parliament wants to remove the monarch, they have to have a vote about it. That's the same in America with the president. They have to have a vote around about it. All you need is someone who supports your power basis, and it subverts all of those democratic restrictions that were put on. We saw this with Trump. When Trump had control over the fucking House and the Senate, like, they couldn't get rid of him. And even when the Dems had fucking control over that shit, they couldn't get rid of him then either. Because you need to have a, like, clear, in America, it's even more weird because, like, it's not just about a majority as well. You kind of need the Supreme Court on your side to really get anywhere with any of these things. Because Trump had the Supreme Court stacked with his staff over the time he was in office, he had an easy chance of getting off. It's like a monarch. You're just electing them. And in that power basis, you get executive orders, which a monarch doesn't even have in my country. That is a situation that allows a US president to do whatever the fuck they want, really. Like, capitalists might have them, executed, same as the CIA, if they push the wrong buttons. But if they want to do what the rest of the civil society in the upper echelons wants for the development of, for the protection of the US capitalist system, which is in decay, it is falling apart. The maintenance of liberalism is becoming more and more impossible since 1993. We are now at a point where fascism is the only option. And if the US president wants to instill fascistic policies through executive orders, you will find the CIA will not Kennedy him. That's the way it's going to go. And so, in 2025, when DeSantis or Trump takes office again, or Trump might be fucked from that one, but when DeSantis takes office again, the situation devolves rapidly. Florida very successfully put through their Don't Say the Gay bill, and another bill I was reading up on earlier. Let me get it up. Florida rep says trans people are dead after transition, passes bill in committee. Florida's Healthcare Regulation Subcommittee met to hear HB 1421, a bill which has been called one of the worst anti-trans bills in the country by Democratic committee members. This bill would ban gender-affirming care for trans youth, allow parents who oppose transition to take custody of their children from affirming parents in violation of judges' orders, ban birth certificate changes, and even ban adult private insurance coverage. In the hearing, multiple Republican representatives lied about data and outright fabricated scenarios to justify banning trans care. One official representative, David Barrero, used his speaking time to hand wave high trans suicide rates. Sorry, I got my voice all confused when I was saying hand wave then. To hand wave high trans suicide rates, stating that transition itself, quote, kills, end quote, because a transgender person no longer goes by their old name and pronouns. The bill then passed out of the committee on a party line vote 12-5. HB 1421 is one of the most extreme anti-trans bills in the United States. Right now, some of its provisions have not been seen before in any other bills regarding the trans community this year. Um, uh, the medical ban proportions for trans youth would be harmful alone, but it even spells how doctors should medically detransition their patients, starting with stating that patients, quote, may continue to receive such therapies through December 31st, 2023, solely for the purpose of gradual discontinuation of such therapies, end quote. It bans birth certificate changes and would even allow parents to ignore the orders of a judge and seek a new order if one parent allowed gender affirming care. Perhaps one of the harshest portions of the bill was the new way in which it targets transgender adults and its expansion into adult care. The bill bans even private insurances from covering gender affirming care for any transgender person. Section 6, Section 627.6411 Florida statutes is created to read 627.6411 coverage of certain treatment. A health insurance policy may not provide coverage for gender clinical interventions as defined in section 456.52 variant 1. Section 7 subsection variant 48 is to section 641.31 Florida statutes to read 641.31 health maintenance contracts. 48, a health maintenance contract may not include coverage for gender clinical interventions as defined in section 456.52 sector 1. Section 8, section 766.318 Florida statutes is created to read, it doesn't have the rest. There was supposed to be something after that. Okay. This provision would mean that all gender affirming care would need to be paid out of pocket, even if a company wanted to support their transgender employees' medical care. They would be forbidden by the state of Florida from doing so. This would effectively price out many transgender people from obtaining forms of gender affirming care. This also makes it clear that attacks on transgender people are about, quote, protecting children, end quote, rather than about, quote, eradicating transgenderism, end quote, as Michael Knowles put it in his recent infamous CPAC speech. I expect these kinds of bills targeting adult care to become increasingly common over the next 2 years. Oh yeah, so what they're on about with Michael Knowles went to CPAC and said that they were going to eradicate transgenderism, and what that means is eradicate transgender people. No two words about it. In order to support these bills, proponents used outright fabricated scenarios and lied about data. Representative Melanie Bell stated that, quote, children as young as 6 months were getting injected with testosterone. That is so absurd. Like, no one is doing that, end quote. Something that is made up out of a whole cloth. That means bullshit. Another representative claimed that 80% of transgender youth detransition, a debunked argument based on decades-old diagnostic criteria and data. Modern studies show the number is only about 2.5%, with the majority so due to a lack of acceptance. The lead sponsor of the bill compared to gender-affirming care to COVID vaccines at one point, assumedly indicating that he was against both things. My arm is fucking aching. Ow. Shit. Ooh. Representative Borrero, um, however, likely had one of the most insulting remarks of the day. He claimed that he supported the bill. Um, he claimed that he supported the bill because transition, quote, kills people, end quote. He stated, quote, when someone transitions to a different gender, that child, that brother, that daughter, that sister that you once knew is no more. Um, that person no longer exists, end quote. With the way they've worded that, they seem to have summarized like the child is just the boys, and then there's the daughter, which is a different entity. Um, that's 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 this is the fuck statement though. Right there. Oh, gotta turn the mic down. Right there. It's plain and simple to see. He is turning around and saying that transition kills people, that we're already dead. This envisions a situation where massacre, because he's talking about the bill that I've just been reading an article about. Representative Brero then closed off his comments with religious justifications for the bill. He said that the bill saves trans people and preserves um, them for um, quote who they are in the eyes of God, end quote. A recent Vice article showed that the lobbyists responsible for these laws seemingly view them as part of an anti-trans religious crusade. The lobbyists at times sign off their emails with things like quote under his wings, end quote, which have some have compared to the handmaid's tale phrase quote under his eye, end quote. Transgender people are not quote killed, end quote, by their transition. Transition care saves lives. In studies shown the reduction of suicide risk as high as 73%. More than that, though, transgender people don't, quote, die, end quote, after transitioning. We are still living, breathing people with all our loves and joys and memories from attempting to live our lives as a gender we never were meant to be. Many trans people will testify that this statement is something we have heard from parents or friends who cannot accept our new identities and consider us, quote unquote, dead to them. Um, Dozens of people testified passionately in front of this committee to let them know how this bill and language used by people like Rep. Borrero hurts the community. One remarkable speech was from Max Fanning, president of PRISM, an LGBTQ plus nonprofit in South Florida. Um, he demanded the committee's attention, telling them to look at trans people in the room in the eyes. When told his time was up, he replied, quote, "The audacity you give us 1 minute to beg for mercy," end quote. Holy fuck. Um, 1 second. Trying to do something, but it's been a cunt. Okay, what the fuck? Why is it being a cunt? There we go. Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Max Fenning, and I'm the founder and president of PRISM, a youth-led LGBT nonprofit in South Florida. I'm sure this tireless work to strip people of their rights every chance you get is so exhausting. Trust me, it is for us too. So I hope that we wake you up today. I hope you can look up from your phones when hundreds of people come up to you crying, begging to be seen as human beings, to be heard. I hope you look them in their teary, puffy, beet red eyes when you tell them that you know better about their lives than they do, when you pretend the science is on your side, when you know full well it is anything but, when you pretend that your hands are tied behind your back by the GOP's zip ties and duct tape, while you drown in 2 feet of water and pretend to be lost at sea so you can look good in front of your melting wax figure of a governor that will ride a ghost ship circling the White House and never be permitted to dock at its port. I hope you have the audacity. You give us 1 minute to beg for mercy. If you're going to be a murderer, then act like it.
Thank you for being here. Sierra, you're next, please.
Thank you for your time.
Fascist scumbags. And that's the situation that they stick in. They'll sit there debating this bill for ages amongst themselves on how much they need to eradicate the transes because we kill the youth. Because once you transition, you're dead. Which is already like a massive call for violence against trans people in and of itself. But then the counter from actual LGBTQ people, 1 minute. Was it even that? Yeah, 1 minute. That's it. I should use that finger actually. 1 minute, and in that format. Hello, brethren. Fucking dealing with the fun topics of transphobia, because the UK, the USA, Canada, Australia, well, it's a little more dependent on where you are in Australia, but everything's getting worse. I mean, like, there was a march in Australia recently with these TERFs, and these these literal Nazis came to it, and the police protected the Nazis and the TERFs against the LGBTQ pro-trans, the pro-trans protesters. That's a fucking mouthful. It's still got this cute little Irish Zippo, like it's a normal size Zippo, but it's a cute Irish Zippo. I mean, these vile trends tend to intersect. I mean, transphobia has a hella a lot of intersection with racism. and classism, especially, of course. But trans women across the board, we're seen as girls you can hit. The oh yeah, that do be how it be. All these things have a relationship to each other. But the situation is devolving quick. I've made my peace on my calls to action. And I think I'm probably gonna fucking call it here and go rest easy because my back is killing. Um, Love, respect, and solidarity, comrades. Stay breezy, smokers.